Alright, Supreme Court cases. Okay, we discussed these on Monday. We're going to do an overview, okay? Marbury v. Madison. Anybody remember what happened in that Supreme Court case? Emily?
Before the president left office, he tried to put someone in the Supreme Court, but they didn't have the correct papers to get completely put in yet, and the papers were lost in the mail or like hadn't gotten completely put through. And Madison was demanding that they got put through, and the Supreme Court decided that they had to be put through, but that they couldn't make Madison like mail them or like.
Very good. So, president at the time was John Adams, as she was saying, right? And John Adams names members to the Supreme Court, but the mail that confirmed them into the Supreme Court wasn't officially delivered while Thomas Jefferson is president. And so Thomas Jefferson kind of puts a hold on the process, and Marbury was one of the Supreme Court judges. He was supposed to be named to the Supreme Court. And so he's upset that he doesn't have his judge job. He takes it to the Supreme Court, and what's the important ruling we get from this Supreme Court case, Hannah?
They use judicial review for the first time.
Very good. Okay, for the first time we get the idea of judicial review. Okay?
Oh yeah,
Judicial review, which is the role of the Supreme Court. And what is that role? What is their job?
They look into the Constitution.
Very good. They line up a court case or line up a law and determine whether it is constitutional, right? That's called judicial review. Does this follow the Constitution? So in this particular ruling, they're saying we actually don't have the power to rule on this particular decision. But what we do have is, in the future, we need to always line up cases with the Constitution to determine whether they are constitutional, which is the process called judicial review, which we still have today. So anytime you see Marbury v. Madison, associate judicial review. Okay? Next case in chronological order is McCulloch v. Maryland. Okay? And in this particular case, took place in Maryland. There were banks operating in the state of Maryland. They wanted to place a federal bank there in Maryland, and they wanted to tax that bank. McCulloch operates this federally owned bank and says that they shouldn't have to pay that tax. And so they take it to the Supreme Court. And then anyone know the big takeaway from this Supreme Court case? It's a little bit more difficult than the first. Henry?
So the federal government doesn't have the right to tax it. No, it was the state government that doesn't have the right to tax the national bank.
Very good. And so the national bank is allowed to operate in a state because why? Is it directly say that in the Constitution? No, it doesn't. So what do they say? It doesn't directly say it in the Constitution, but it's implied, right? It's implied. And so we get this idea of implied powers. Okay? And what was an example we talked about with implied powers that the government practices as far as the military? What's an implied power with the military?
The draft.
Do what?
The draft.
The draft. Okay?
Yeah.
Somebody tell me, Gage, how is the draft implied? Like, it directly says in the Constitution that they can operate a standing army and navy, but explain to me, what's the draft? When you turn 18, what happens?
You sign up, and then if you ever go into war, you get drafted into the military.
Okay, so all men after you turn 18 could potentially be drafted for war, right? And does it directly say that in the Constitution? Does it directly say that all men have to sign up for the draft when you turn 18 in the Constitution? No, but it is
Implied.
it's implied. They're saying it's an implied power. Okay?
Wait, so you don't have to?
No, it's implied
It's-
because like once you get like your driver's license, right?
Yeah,
And
once
you
you
have to register because if they like do your last name.
it's against it's a crime if you don't register for the draft once you're 18 and you're a male. Okay, next Supreme Court case, Gibbons v. Ogden. Okay, this one had to do with two guys operating their steamboats in the state of New York. Okay, Ogden, he had a monopoly. where he was one of the only ones allowed to operate his boat.
Here's part of this interruption. Due to early dismissal today, second period will let out at 9:04, so you will not be waiting until 9:30 the day the post is
9:04.
So I will give your students a little bit of time to get to class, and then you can post. Thank you.
Good job.
So, Gibbons v. Ogden. Ogden had a monopoly where he was one of the only ones allowed to operate his boat. Gibbons got his permission to operate from the federal government. It said he could operate his boat between New York and New Jersey. Okay, and so Ogden says, hey, you don't have permission to operate your boat here. So they go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules in favor of who?
Him.
Which one?
Ogden.
Rules in favor of Gibbons, right? And says he does have permission to operate his boat because interstate commerce is controlled by who?
The federal
The federal government, right? So we get from this Supreme Court case the idea of interstate commerce. Okay, interstate commerce is what?
affairs within the state.
Okay, affairs between states. Okay. The federal government. Okay, the federal government controls interstate commerce. Okay, between multiple states, it's controlled by the federal government. This one should be easy. Worcester v. Georgia. Okay, what was that Supreme Court case? Let's go with Talmadge.
Basically, they were determining whether the Cherokees had a right to their land.
To the big
Determining whether the Cherokee Indians had a right to their land, and what did they rule in the Supreme Court case?
That the Cherokees did have a right to their land.
They ruled that the Cherokees did have a right to their land. Okay, but what does Andrew Jackson do? Caleb Guerreri? Andrew Jackson ignores ignored the ruling, pushed the Indians out anyway. So associate this case though, Worcester v. Georgia, with the Indians, okay, or Native Americans.
Stop.
Last one, Dred Scott v. Sanford. Okay, Dred Scott and his wife, what did they want, Javante?
Wait, is this the
Sorry, what did they want, Zoe?
Didn't they want freedom?
They wanted their freedom.
Yeah, but
Okay? Why did they feel that they were free? Raise your hand. Why did they feel that they were free, Mia?
Was it because they were in a free state?
Yes, they traveled to a free state.
but then they came back.
Hold on. Anyone remember that what free state they traveled to?
Maine. Crap.
Missouri.
Maine's a free state.
Okay? They traveled
Wisconsin.
to
Let's go!
Devontae's got it. Say louder.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay? Remember,
Highlighters aren't supposed
they
to talk.
started in Alabama, traveled to Missouri. Both Alabama and Missouri are what kind of states? Slave states. Okay, both of them are slave states. But then they spent some time in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is a free state. Okay, so there was this saying. What was the saying that they?
Once free, always free.
Once free, always free. So they said they believe that since they were in a free state, they should still continue to be free. And the Supreme Court ends up ruling in favor of who? Did they rule in favor of Dred Scott or against Dred Scott? And they rule against Dred Scott. And so the idea of that we get from Dred Scott is we're leading up to what? The Civil War. Okay, this is an even more dividing issue, and it's pushing us towards the Civil War. So,
Coach,
yes.
isn't it too that the blacks they couldn't go to court or
Good.
they couldn't do anything to?
Very good. They ruled that blacks could not, they didn't have
Right to the
the right to go to the courts, right? And they said once free, always free no longer applies in slave states.
Cause they didn't go by that.
Good. All right, good work. Yeah.
I'll stop it.